Hey, Shipwreck old buddy. How you doing? It's Slim. Slim Carity. You know, Sly Rax's friend. From the Galactic Happy Hour. Goblin talk show host. We met at that party. Remember I accidentally married a houseplant? Yeah, that guy. Oh yeah, the rash cleared right up, no problem. But yeah, the reason I was calling is because you had said that if I ever needed any advice to just let you know, so I need a little advice. Well, basically, I was thinking about redoing the Cartoon Mustaches episode. Because, the first time it not only wasn't very good, it wasn't me. I was just wondering, you think it's too soon? Great, thanks, pal. I appreciate it. So, I was thinking, you wouldn't be on the show? Maybe you could come over and we could take some selfies and get some body oil and. Must have gotten disconnected. Well, howdy, party people and space cadets, and welcome to the Galactic Happy Hour. I'm your host, Spider Island Slim, and on this week's episode, we will be talking about cartoon mustaches. That's right, cartoon mustaches, because a mustache makes everything better. Except for a hipster. Nothing makes a hipster better. Alright, moving right along. So, number 5 on the list, and with this, I wanted to say that there will be no repeating franchises here. Because if that was the case, I could do an entire episode just on the great G.I. Joe mustaches. And speaking of G.I. Joe, number 5 on the list is Dr. Mindbender. And Dr. Mindbender, voiced by Brian Cummings, who was also the voice of Bumbleion on the Woozles, first appeared in the episode Arise, Serpentor, Arise. That is in the cartoon. Now, his actual first appearance was in the G.I. Joe comic book, issue number 44, which is really interesting because it wasn't until I was doing research for the episode that I realized that old Dr. Mindbender took that long to appear, especially with the first appearance of Serpentor that far along. And let me tell you, this is a great looking character with a great design. I mean, come on, suspenders, a cape, monocle, no shirt underneath. Man, that is a look and a choice that I respect. So, in his backstory, Dr. Mindbender was a mild mannered dentist who wanted to find a way to relieve dental pain. That's nice, right? He began experimenting on himself using electric brainwave stimulation. Well, that went a little wrong, and from there he would end up Cobra's chief science officer and would kinda sorta hate Cobra Commander and kinda sorta build replacement. Makes sense, right? Now, this is a character, unfortunately, I didn't grow to appreciate until I was an adult. As a kid, I don't know, he just didn't sit right with me. He kind of reminded me of the Iron Sheik from wrestling. And even though I didn't really watch a lot of wrestling, I just knew that Iron Sheik was a bad guy. At least I think he was a bad guy. Wasn't he a bad guy? Someone let me know if he was a bad guy. And just, I don't know, didn't really like didn't really like Dr. Mindbender. But I like him now. Appreciate that sense of style. Good stuff. Now, number 4 on the list is probably going to be one of the more obscure entries on this list, but it really shouldn't be. And that is Johnok from Dragon Warrior, known as Dragon Quest in Japan. And I consider this to be the greatest, I say greatest, Saturday morning cartoon of the 90s, though it actually came out in Japan as Dragon Quest in 1989, but it didn't hit the US until the early 90s. So I consider it, and I'm counting it, because it was dubbed, rebranded a bit as Dragon Warrior, and brought to American Saturday morning TV. And who, you may be asking, is responsible for bringing such a great series over? Well, they didn't bring the whole series over. It was actually only just 13 episodes out of like 40 or 50 something, which was unfortunate because it never ended. But it was brought over by Saban Entertainment, which is probably most famous now for Power Rangers. But Dragon Warrior told the story of a group of rather quirky, unusual heroes on an epic quest. Johnok, who was voiced by Richard Newman, was the magician of the group. It was really just a great series, really unique in just its style and presentation. And Jonak, he was unusual because, yes, he was the magician of the group, and he was really good at what he did, but he was also drunk and kind of a womanizer, and, well, I can kind of, sort of, little bit, sort of, relate to that. And in the Japanese version, he's kind of a giant pervert, too. I definitely cannot relate to something like that. And a reason, too, I believe Dragon Warrior just really stood out, especially from the anime that was being brought over at the time, was it was designed by Akira Toriyama, who is most famous for Dragon Ball Z fame. So yeah, it had that kind of interesting Dragon Ball sort of look, but on a fantasy show. So if you've never seen that one, I mean, it's never been released in any way, but you can find it. I watched it not too long ago, the original Japanese subtitled, here on YouTube. Now, number 3 on the list is a special one, because not only is it a robot, not only is it a person with a mustache, it's a robot with a mustache. I mean, talk about a way to make a robot even cooler. Put a mustache on him. And that is Wreck-Gar from Transformers. And he was one of the Junkions from the planet Junkion. His first appearance was, of course, in Transformers the movie, and he was voiced by Eric Idle. And talk about one of the most memorable scenes in the whole movie. I mean, I'll never forget the first time I saw that and Weird Al playing, and I was already a huge Weird Al fan at the time. So seeing that with the Weird Al music, I was doubly excited. And coming away from that movie, he was definitely the character I was the most interested in, the one I wanted to have immediately, and the first movie toy, or I don't know if you call it movie toy, but from that wave of toys that I ever got. Now, but speaking of that toy, and the unfortunate thing about it is, though I loved it at the time, even then I did not understand why the toy did not have the mustache. How can you make a Wreck-Gar figure without the mustache? Would have been so easy. That was just a crime and a tragedy that makes me upset to this day. So after the movie, he then joined the cast of the series, where he was voiced by Tony Pope. Interestingly, in the movie, he spoke in full. He didn't speak in full. He spoke in a mashup of movie quotes put together to kind of make sense. But then when they went to the TV series, it just moved to full movie and TV and commercial quotes. I often wonder if they did that because they just started running out of cool ideas of things to mash up. But either way, he was a great character. And interesting little tidbit, piece of trivia for you, in the Transformers animated series from 2007, which I still have not watched. I didn't really get into the character design too much, but he was voiced by Weird Al, kind of a cool, full circle kind of thing. And on that, we should probably take some kind of silly little break.
Switch on Chargertron, robots like you've never seen. Switch on Chargertron, supersonic machines. Rev the meter till it's red. Launch out the tracker. Switch on Chargertron, now it's an attacker. Switch on Chargertron, always changing, rearranging. He's surprising. He's disguising. Chargertron.
Chargertron. There's Protagatron and Antagatron, each sold separately from Buddy L.
And we are back, and it's time for the horoscope of the week. And this week's horoscope goes out to Aquarius. Aquarius, give generously. Give money, give booze, just as generously as you can to any Hawaiian shirt wearing goblin you see. Now, number 2 on the list, and this is one that I'm really excited about, and I could just kick that silly cat for not having it on the previous ripoff list, and that is Man-at-Arms from Masters of the Universe. And you want to talk about the unsung hero of the series. I mean, yeah, everyone thinks about He-Man or Skeletor, but I often think about good old Duncan or Man-at-Arms. Like when we were kids on the playground, granted, I always wanted to be Skeletor, and then when Hordak came along, it was all about the Hordak, but most of the little boys wanted to be He-Man, but only one could. So the lucky one that got to be He-Man left all the other characters open. And I think that number 2 character who everyone wanted to be was Man-at-Arms. Just a cool, cool character. Now, Man-at-Arms, whose real name, as I said, was Duncan. I don't know if that was ever established on the original animated series, or if that just came in for the Mike Young series, which is my personal favorite. He was the weapons master, he was a soldier, and he was also Teela's foster father. And he was voiced by Alan Oppenheimer, who was also the voice of Skeletor, and I think Merman too. How cool is that? Now, as I mentioned with Retgar, this was another case where the toy did not include the mustache. According to what I read, Filmation, the company that did Masters of the Universe, added the mustache later into things to make Duncan look more fatherly and wise. Yet, that's kind of contradicted by the fact that early sketches of Man-at-Arms had him with facial hair. So who knows? But either way, he did not have his mustache. But that has since been rectified with the new kind of classic style figures. And if you haven't seen the Mike Young series, which I think ran in 2003, either 2001 or 2003, that is a great series and one of the best adaptions of the Masters of the Universe you're going to find. Number 1 on the list, and this one is a giant cheat. But you know what? It's my list, and you made it this far, so ha ha ha. Sorry. So it's my list, and number 1 would be Tendril from Inhumanoids from 1986. And I know, it's not technically a mustache. It's actually a bunch of wormy tentacle things over his mouth. But it looks like a mustache, and what's cooler than a mustache made out of hair? A mustache made out of tentacles. Like, matter of fact, right there, yeah. Still one of my all-time favorite toys as well. But man, talk about a cool character. I mean, it was a Lovecraft-esque giant monster on a Sunday morning cartoon. And yeah, I said Sunday morning because in my hometown, Inhumanoids came on Sunday mornings for some reason. But either way, he was awesome, and Lovecraft on Sunday morning, that kind of just makes it even funnier, right? So Inhumanoids told the story of a group of human scientists going up against giant monsters from within the earth. And Tendril was one of those giant monsters, and the best one, if you ask me. He was voiced by Chris Latta, who also voiced Decomposed. And Tendril was kind of a slimy, tentacly monster that could not only regenerate lost limbs, those lost limbs would grow into more tendrils. So, even better. That's embarrassing. My phone just went off. I'm going to leave it, though, because it was the Power Rangers thing. Trivia about our boy Tendril here. Inhumanoids, G.I. Joe, and Jim, supposedly, are all set in the same fictional universe, all due to a reporter character who appeared on all 3 of the shows. I thought that was a pretty interesting nugget of information. And the Tendril figure, right there. And that's my original one, too. I didn't buy that later or anything. But I got so much use and so much fun out of both him and the Decomposed there. And I had Metlar too, but the Metlar actually physically fell apart. Like his body just kept falling open and his arms and legs would fall off. But the Tendril, I guess, was made out of sterner stuff. Too bad he didn't fall apart and like grow into several others, right? And that's my list. But before we go, let's have an honorable mention. And this character is not one of my favorite characters, not one of my favorite Cartoon Mustaches, not even one of my favorite Looney Tunes, even though I like the character okay. But the last time this episode list style thing went up, even though it wasn't me, so many people complained that he wasn't on it. So I'm going to throw him on it just to make everyone happy. Because your buddy Slim believes in drinking a whole lot and making everybody happy. And that is Yosemite Sam. And his first appearance, well, an early version of him, appeared on a Stage Door cartoon from December 16th, 1944. But the official first Yosemite Sam was on the Hair Trigger episode from May 5th, 1945. And most famously, he was voiced by the great Mel Blanc. Or is it Blanc? I think it's Blanc. Mel Blanc? Yeah. But of course, a ton of different people have voiced Sam over the years. And supposedly, Sam was actually a caricature of Friz Freleng, who was, well, anyone who knows Looney Tunes and classic cartoons at the time knows the name Friz Freleng. Friz Freleng. Well, they probably know the name of Friz Freleng a little better than Friz Freleng. Anyway, that's all the time we have for this week. Please like, comment, subscribe, and may your pants always be filled with marshmallows.